you can't touch it or feel the textures or smell it when you're thinking about it, so it's a whole different experience, of course, to be inside.
Where you and I see just a pile of wood, Erik Block can already see a barn.
Usually it's visualized before we even start building. Sometimes you can actually walk through, you can see the shadows, you can sort of hear the echoes, you know how it's going to be.
We met Erik and his brother Halden back in October as they began construction on a timber frame barn in Lyme. That early in the build, progress is measured in strokes of the chisel and swings of the hammer. To see the structure take shape, you have to speed up time.
The main thing that strikes me is how much activity it actually takes in order to put a building like that up. Day to day, you kind of don't realize how much, energy it takes to make it all happen.
As autumn gives way to winter, the progress of the changing seasons, November's first snow, the shorter daylight hours, are more apparent than the construction progress. But then the frame goes up on November 18th.
It's always a little nerve-wracking because all your pieces and parts have to fit perfectly to make it all come together, but it's pretty rewarding when it's all done because you can step back and say, it worked.
One beam could take a day to figure out and cut and, put together with the rest, and then you get to the moment of truth and you get pretty nervous about it.
The frame's exciting though on any building, if it's stick framed or timber framed, because it's the first point where you can actually see the structure, the shape, and how it affects the property.
A lot of times you have that image in your head of what it's going to look like when you're done, but there's kind of a nagging feeling the entire time of all the pieces aren't together yet. And when they finally come together, you kind of step back and say, well, that's what I thought it would look like, but now I can finally, it's finally tangible.
As Christmas approaches, the barn gets its own holiday decoration.
That's the wedding bush. It's sort of tradition that you cut down a sapling, and it's sort of a blessing to the building, sort of in keeping with the same, it's all wood.
And traditionally you actually go up and give a blessing to the frame, and we don't go that far, but we actually cut it down Christmas Eve, which was kind of sad, but we figured the lights would add a little bit of festive touch to it.
I had a half-broken strand, so we just threw it up there.
We do actually cut the top off and leave the base of the sapling because that's tradition to kind of keep that with the building for its lifetime.
Yeah, so the little stub's still up in the rafters.
With January and February comes snowstorm after snowstorm, slowing progress and creating difficult working conditions.
Depends on your outlook that day. Sometimes it's really fun because you're sort of out in the elements and you get to experience everything, but sometimes it's pretty, it drains you right out. You go home and you're just shot, You spend a lot of energy just trying to keep yourself warm. A lot of the middle days in between the snow, obviously it's not as cold when it's snowing, but there'd be the mornings where it's 6 degrees, and you show up and the trailer's frozen shut and the locks are frozen and you have to light a match to get the lock to thaw out. And that's not a lot of fun. And there's a lot of time spent in between those frames shoveling those huge snowstorms too,
February gives way to March. The days get longer, temperatures rise, the snow begins to melt, and the barn nears completion.
I think the main thing of standing back and looking at it when you're done is that you realize that the building's going to last for the next 300 years, whereas a lot of buildings that are built today, they'll last, but they have to be redone and updated. And the way that we built the barn is the same way that they built the houses back in the 1700s, so that it's going to last.